Welcome to the top 10 keys to starting the recruiting process, presented by Moose Bingham and Recruiting for Parents. The recruiting process has become extremely complicated in the last few years, and it's almost unrecognizable from 10, 15, 20 years ago. Our goal tonight is to get you guys on the right foot so that you know exactly what you're going to do and how to get to the next level. By following the right blueprint, I believe that anyone can play at the next level because I was able to do so. Understanding the path is very complicated. It's difficult, but it's rewarding and extremely worth it as well. Going through this quick presentation, some of you will understand that this is not a path that you and your family will want to take. And trust me, it's better to find that out earlier rather than later. Take some notes, you guys. Let's learn as much as possible in these next 20-25 minutes and write down questions at the end. And I'll do what I can to answer your questions quickly, either on this presentation or after the fact. I'm going to do my best to answer all your questions, but they all can't be answered in one quick presentation. That's why Recruiting for Parents exists. My name is Moose Bingham. I was an all-state player in Utah. I played at BYU, Utah, and Snow College, where I was unfortunately injured and began my career. I then coached at BYU, Utah, and Snow College from 2015 to 2021. I was able to take BYU to a top 5 special teams unit in the country, have a top 50 recruiting class at BYU, and had 4 All-Americans at Snow. I was the on-campus recruiting coordinator at BYU from 2015 to 2018. And after 2018, after BYU, I started War Room, where I have worked with over 40 Division I teams and met with almost every single team in the country going over recruiting. What was interesting is almost every single team did recruiting just a little bit differently. I've helped hundreds of families get thousands of scholarships and millions of dollars since 2015. If you want to reach out to me, my @ is MooseB90 on X. The problem we're facing with transfer portal, COVID, bloated staffs, and now NIL, the recruiting game, like I said, has been flipped on its head and is no longer enough to be just a talented football player to get to the next level. Of the million high school football players that start as 8th graders and freshmen, only about 2,500 will get the opportunity to play FBS on scholarship, and only 10,000 will play college football at all. Of course, this number varies. What are the steps and how do you become one of the top 10,000 players at the next level is a question we all have to ask ourselves. The solution is getting knowledge to understand the recruiting landscape, understanding the correct schools you and your family need to go after, and getting the right team around your athlete. Finally, make sure that your athlete is loved and supported no matter what. Now let's get into the 10 keys below. Top 10 keys that you need to focus on to get to the next level starts with number 1, film. To understand how talented an athlete is, first we must watch film and compare their film to other players that are currently in college. I like to take kids and be like, let's watch this kid who's at BYU, or this kid who's at Alabama, or this kid who's at Alcorn State. Give yourself the ability to look at a lot of different schools and the players that chose to attend those schools. Once you decide, hey, my player matches up with the kids at this school, let's talk with your high school coach and say, where do you think I can play? I recommend that the athlete does this rather than the parents to help solidify the relationship with the high school coach. While going through the film of the student athlete, make sure that they understand alignment, assignment, and technique, what the players are trying to do, and what's going on in plays. This is going to help football knowledge, and when college coaches come and ask them, what's the point of this play? They'll be able to say, my point is to be at this drop point, to read this person, and use this technique to get there. Once reviewing the film, we have to select the top plays that our student athlete is making and create a huddle. By watching other huddles, we can see a quick blueprint of what's successful. In a huddle, we need to make a 3-game highlight, a mid-season highlight, a regular season highlight, and a full season highlight as well. The only highlight that college coaches really care about are varsity highlights. The recruiting process can't begin until your player is the best player at his school. When making a huddle, let's make sure that the best plays are first, and understand you only have 3 plays or 30 seconds to excite a coach. That's the harsh reality, because with coaches, they have to go through sometimes thousands of huddle films that players are sending in. So you have to be able to stick out. Understand this is like a book cover. If you guys go to the library, what covers interest you? And your huddle is the same thing. what huddles interest a coach so that they can learn more. When going through huddles, make sure that you keep stats and huddles updated. If you can, post measurables with photo evidence. Have everything the same on Huddle and Twitter or X. If you need more help, go follow my TikTok at MooseBingham90. Number 2 key is the top 10 things to look for in a college. Once we have film, we need to understand what colleges to send the film to. This is an exercise that you need to do with your student athlete, where the athlete will sit down and write down the top 10 things they're looking for in a college. This could be anything from game day atmosphere, coaches, location, school rank, post-grad opportunities, NIL, scheme. There's a plethora of things that people are looking for in colleges. Let's narrow it down to what our student athlete is looking for. Understand everyone's list is going to be different, and every college is different. This is a matchmaking process so that we can find the right athlete, the right college, and it's a perfect fit. When we know what we're looking for in a college, we can start to narrow down those colleges and find the colleges that fits our athlete best and the colleges that will actually recruit our athlete as well. This list also is imperative when talking to coaches. Coaches will come and ask, what are you looking for in a college? And you can say, I'm looking for somewhere that has a great game day atmosphere that can put me in the NFL, that will give me the money to provide for my family while I'm in college, get me the job, that security for the rest of my life. Let's surround your athlete with a team at this point. This is the 3rd key. Guardians need to facilitate research, manage social media, rides, arrange schedule, pay for trips, an endless amount of support no matter what happens. The high school football coach, their only job is verification and advocate when college coaches call. Team members may be at your high school, they may not. Let's make sure that we have a nutritionist that helps in weight gain and fat loss. That's very important. Strength coaches help in muscle gain and fat loss and give us the body so that we can perform on Friday nights. Speed coaches, correct running form makes a huge difference in what we're trying to do. Position-specific coaches as well. Learning the right technique and preparing for camps and games is imperative. You may have the smartest kid in the school, you may not. A tutor is really helpful when we're trying to get to a minimum of a 3.3 core GPA, a 25 ACT. Know that high schools will have some of these things and some won't, but we want to give our kids the best opportunity to get to the next level regardless of what happens. The athlete's part is to execute all the plans that are laid out. We're going to have some accountability for our athlete because they're going to have to want this more than you. Let's get our 5-10-5 going. There's a lot of different schools in the country. There's about 1,000, but if we can narrow it down to 20, we're going to be all right. We can actually form relationships with coaches. We can do what we need to. Our first 5 are our dream schools. Schools that we would go to if they offered us tomorrow. For me, it was a school like Stanford or USC or Utah, where I was like, hey, I would love to go to these schools no matter what. Then we have the 10 schools that are in your athletic and scholastic ability. If you're an FCS player, maybe you'd be able to go to a Weber State, but not necessarily be able to go to a school like Harvard or Yale. Finally, we have our 5 safety schools. These schools are there just in case something happens so that we can get into the college landscape. You guys have to know where you're ranked, and we'll go through some of those ranking abilities in the next few moments. Understand that you will be either an FBS, FCS, D2, D3, NAI, or National Junior College Association player. College rosters used to be made up of 25 new high school players every single year and 5 to 10 walk-ons. That is no longer the case. Colleges can take 40 or more or none high school players. Most schools, we have to understand, have a 1-year scholarship agreement. Just because you're committed to a school doesn't mean you'll be there in the next calendar year. Most FBS schools at this point are only taking 10 high school players, and with that, there's a huge trickle-down effect. That means that some of these lower level schools are getting much more talent. You could be at a lower level school and then go to an upper echelon school. Only enter the transfer portal if you're marketable, have a plan, and have film to back up your skills from the school you're currently at. If you hop in the transfer portal and you were a scout team player, you may not be one of the 10,000 players anymore. After you transfer once, you have to get your undergrad degree to go to another institution. Even though we're seeing more people as athlete students, The student still needs to come first, and you need to get those degrees so that you're setting yourself up for life. Colleges may only take one position player at your position. For me, I was a player that Stanford said, "You're in our top 5." And I was like, "That's great." They said, "Unfortunately, our number 1 guy has committed. So we are no longer interested in you unless you want to walk on." And that was not a financial ability for me and my family. Also remember that coaches change schools every year. Make sure you like the school you're at, regardless of the coaches, especially if you're on your second transfer. Coaches now, their goal is to graduate half of the class that comes in, get them to stick around. That's considered a successful class, where it used to be almost every kid that attended the school would end up with a degree of some kind. When talking to these coaches, ask about academic progress rate, graduation rate, and job placement. Talk to current and former players and see if what the coaches are saying matches up to what they're saying. The daily schedule is so important. It's where an athlete proves if they're serious about playing at the next level. Most of the time, I recommend that the student athletes in high school do their best to mirror a college schedule. Daily schedules have to be aligned with players' goals. And this is what a typical college schedule looks like. When I went to Utah, we had speed training from 6 to 8. I had my personal training 8 to 9. Then I had class 10:15 to about 2. Then I'd hurry back to the facility. We had lifting 3 to 5. And then 5 to 6, we had film study. After that, we had study hall 7 to 9. And between 6 and 7, I'd try to eat and do a little more rehab so that I could hurry, go home, get my homework done, and do this same schedule over again the next day. It becomes monotonous, it's hard, but if you have a schedule, you're gonna see massive improvement quickly. Our 7th key is social media. Social media is how college coaches will be able to contact you. There's some keys here. I'd even take a screenshot of this and try to get your social media to look as close as this as possible. Know that whatever you like, you're telling the world that you endorse that, so colleges and coaches can see it. Be careful liking material that is controversial, such as religion or politics, and especially be careful if you choose to like or retweet pornography. That is something that a lot of coaches will stop following you immediately. Other things to be aware of: every single person nowadays has a camera. So what you're saying in public is no longer a private conversation. It can show up on coaches' news feeds and have dire consequences. I can't tell you how many kids I've met that have lost scholarships based off of things they've said in public. Communicating with coaches, this is one of my favorite slides because we have our team and the coaches have their team. Let's connect them, and the way we can connect them is through communication and social media. Anytime we reach out to coaches, make sure we have a purpose. Hey coach, I'm excited to come to camp. Will you let me know blah, 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 blah. Remember your manners. Yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. No matter who's communicating with you, whether that's media or an NIL collective. Recently, an NIL collective reached out to a student athlete and they posted their student athlete's response that was vulgar and demeaning. So you never know who's on the other side of that. You're going to have to reach out to a team about 7 times before they really acknowledge you and what's going on. But you guys are going to have to find a way to separate yourself. When I was the on-campus recruiting coordinator at BYU, a kid showed up with a briefcase with his huddle film on a zip drive and his transcripts in hand. He had a suit on and said, "I'm interested in this, 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 and this," and he made a lasting impression in me. The other thing he did was he wrote a thank you note after the fact. One of the very few that I received from players. If coaches are not responding though, it could be for 2 reasons. One, the coach is just sitting there and he's like, "I really don't think that this kid can play at this level." And 2, it could be the coach is, "I'm not able to communicate with this kid until his junior year of September 1st. Both of those things are valid. And sometimes you need to force coaches' hands and get a scholarship from their rivals. Stats are something that are always interesting. A lot of people come up to me and say, "Hey, I led the nation in this statistical category." Colleges may not pay attention to that. You have to see that the body composition has changed drastically because Morris Red, Bad Grow, probably couldn't even make my high school football team if he was trying to play offensive and defensive lines. Whereas Halode Nada, even if he was playing another position, like running back or something like that, we would find a way to get him on the field. So just understand how much this game has changed in the last 20, 30 years. And there's kids that look like Halode Nada now in high school. Might not be running the 5-second 40-yard dash, but just as big, just as scary, and just as explosive. Stats are important, but know that most colleges, they really look for potential over stats. You lead the nation in sacks, but you're 5'8", most coaches won't give you a second look. They have certain criteria that they look for. Some coaches I talk to, they're like, we have to have guys that are 6'1" and run a sub 1100. Other coaches I talk to, they say length is the most important thing. We can get weight and speed on these guys. If you have all the measurables and you look like Tarzan, but you play like Jane, there could be some issues there as well. Let's make sure we get as many green flags from these coaches as possible. Coaches, like I said, they're going to look at potential more than anything. Sometimes they'll take tight ends and move them to tackles, or quarterbacks and move them to wide receiver or safety, or D ends and move them to D tackles. Coaches are going to focus on measurables and potential at position than your actual position. There's many kids that didn't even really play a lot of high school football and still end up on college rosters based off of their physical attributes. One coach I talked to, he said, I love taking running backs and moving them to cornerback because they're physical and they've got great hips. When I was at BYU, we took a defensive end and a quarterback and turned them both into offensive linemen, and they both ended up in the NFL. One is a 3rd round draft pick, one is an undrafted free agent. Our 10th key is to always be reevaluating and what happens after an offer. Every month, minimum quarterly, you should have a sit down with the athlete and evaluate where they're at and if they're still on the path of scholarship offers. What you guys can do better and what needs to be accomplished. Maybe you guys got a scholarship offer and we need to ask ourselves, are we going to commit to this offer? If not, why? Can we leverage this offer? If we can, how? And that each offer comes with a time limit. For me, I had a PWO to Stanford. I don't have that anymore. You guys have to be very wise and smart about what you're doing and how to get those scholarship offers. We've gone through a lot in these last 15, 20 minutes, but there's still so much to learn, including when we're rating, who to watch, what it looks like, and how to rate our kid the most effective way possible to understand exactly where they're going to be at. My favorite way of doing this is through the rating system in Recruiting for Parents, so that we can see exactly where our kid can end up and what it looks like in a quick and concise manner. By doing this, by filling out where we're at, we can see what we need to look at and where we're graded at, and understand choosing a school, where our ratings exactly are, the 5, 10, 5, all the schools in the country, what they cost, in-state, out-of-state tuition, estimated room and board, and where we could end up going. There's so much information in Recruiting for Parents, and so many people have already gone through it and done a great job. Some of the people that have gone through recruiting and had a ton of success are people like Anton Palapoy. He recommends his whole entire course goes through it. Jen Powers Johnson, she has an incredible son at Oregon already. Rob Walker, his son got a scholarship offer his sophomore year. And Ross Oppo, who recommends all of his players go through it as well. Recruiting for Parents has so much more than just this. With Recruiting for Parents, you guys can take that step and be running towards your first scholarship offer. In Recruiting for Parents, there's also NFL players that come in and we add videos monthly. The price for this, most courses like this are $3,000 to $10,000. We usually sell this course for $399, but since you guys came in, sat with me, and we had a great time, we're going to be doing our introductory price of $199, and we're going to raise it back up after this event. So don't wait on this. We will also do some special team pricing if you guys want a full team to take advantage of Recruiting for Parents. Any of your questions can be answered at Recruit for Parents on Twitter or at MooseB90. I appreciate you guys spending this time with me. Make sure to check out the course right now and have a wonderful wonderful day.